there's a quiet strength in a person who can stand alone and not feel lonely. It's the kind of strength that isn't loud, isn't showy, and isn't built on applause. It's built on understanding who you are when no one is watching. We live in a world where being surrounded by people is often mistaken for success, and being alone is misunderstood as emptiness, but the truth is much different. Happiness doesn't begin in the crowd. It begins in the mirror. It begins in the moments when you choose to sit with your own thoughts and listen, not to noise, not to pressure, but to yourself. Learning to be happy alone is not about shutting people out. It's about opening a space within you where you can breathe without needing validation. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't dependent on who texts you, who praises you, or who stays beside you. Your worth is constant, anchored by your values, your purpose, and your growth. When you spend time alone, you discover things. You begin to understand what energizes you and what drains you. You learn the difference between habits you adopted to fit in and desires that genuinely belong to you. Solitude stops being a void and starts becoming a workshop, where you shape your character, refine your goals, and strengthen your mindset. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you become comfortable being alone, you actually become better with people. You no longer enter relationships out of fear or dependency. You enter them from a place of clarity and confidence. You give more freely because you're not trying to fill a gap. You connect more deeply because you're not afraid of losing yourself. The goal isn't to avoid connection. The goal is to be so grounded within yourself that whether people stay or go, you remain whole. So take the walk by yourself. Sit in silence without reaching for distraction. Have conversations with your own thoughts. Learn what inspires you, what challenges you, and what you truly want your life to stand for. Because the moment you learn to be happy alone, you stop chasing happiness. You start creating it. Happiness begins internally is a principle that reshapes how we understand fulfillment, success, and emotional well-being. Many people grow up believing that happiness is something external, something found in relationships, achievements, compliments, or material comfort. But when happiness depends solely on outside forces, it becomes fragile. It fluctuates based on circumstances, approval, and outcomes we cannot fully control. Internal happiness works differently. It is built from self-awareness, self-respect, and alignment with personal values. When a person understands that their emotional foundation comes from within, they begin to take responsibility for their inner world rather than waiting for someone or something else to improve it. Internal happiness starts with understanding your emotional landscape. This means acknowledging what truly motivates you, what drains you, and what fulfills you. Many individuals move through life reacting to situations without ever pausing to observe their own emotions. When you slow down and analyze your internal reactions, why certain comments hurt, why certain environments energize you, you gain clarity. This clarity becomes the blueprint for emotional stability. Instead of being tossed around by external influences, you learn to interpret them through self-knowledge. You can differentiate between what genuinely matters and what merely distracts you. Another key part of internal happiness is the belief that personal worth is permanent. External validation is temporary. It comes and goes based on others' opinions, which can change without explanation. When someone relies too heavily on validation, their sense of worth rises and falls depending on how others respond. Internal happiness removes that dependency. It reinforces the understanding that worth is intrinsic. You matter because you exist, not because someone approves of you, compliments you, or chooses to stay in your life. This mindset reduces emotional vulnerability and creates a sense of stability that no external situation can easily shake. Happiness from within also grows from living in alignment with your personal values. When your choices match your principles, integrity, growth, compassion, curiosity, you naturally feel more grounded. People often feel dissatisfied when they betray their own values just to fit in, avoid conflict, or seek approval. The discomfort that follows is not caused by others, but by internal misalignment. When you start making decisions that reflect your beliefs, you cultivate a sense of authenticity. This authenticity becomes a source of quiet confidence and fulfillment. Another essential element is developing inner purpose. Purpose is not always a grand mission or a life-defining passion. Sometimes it is simply a clear understanding of what gives your days meaning. When you find purpose, whether in learning, helping, creating, or improving, you create an internal compass. This compass gives direction even when life feels uncertain. External achievements may still matter, but they no longer define your identity. Purpose keeps you steady, motivated, and emotionally anchored even during challenges. Internal happiness is also strengthened through emotional independence. Emotional independence doesn't mean rejecting support or avoiding connection. It means not relying on others to manage your emotions. When you understand that your joy, peace, and stability come from within, you become responsible for nurturing them. You learn how to calm your mind, regulate your reactions, and comfort yourself when things become difficult. This skill empowers you to move through life without fear of losing your emotional balance whenever circumstances change. Developing internal happiness also requires intentional reflection. Journaling, mindful thinking, or sitting quietly with your thoughts allows you to reconnect with yourself. Many people constantly seek distraction because silence reveals insecurities, fears, or unfulfilled desires. But facing these truths is what leads to emotional growth. When you acknowledge your weaknesses without judgment, you transform them into opportunities for improvement. Reflection helps you recognize patterns, why certain situations repeat, why certain triggers affect you, and gives you the chance to change them. Ultimately, internal happiness becomes a form of self-leadership. It teaches you to take charge of your emotions instead of outsourcing your well-being. When happiness comes from within, you approach relationships, work, and challenges differently. You engage not because you need someone or something to complete you, but because you want to contribute, grow, and connect authentically. You become less fearful of loss, less anxious about expectations, and more confident in who you are. Internal happiness frees you from emotional dependence and empowers you to build a stable, strong, meaningful life. One that doesn't collapse when external circumstances shift. Solitude strengthens identity because it creates the space necessary to understand who you are without the constant influence of other people's expectations, opinions, and habits. In daily life, individuals are frequently shaped, often unconsciously, by the environments they move through. Families, friends, colleagues, and even social media contribute to a constant stream of external noise that can blur personal boundaries and values. When you spend intentional time alone, that noise quiets down. In the silence, your true voice becomes easier to hear. Solitude becomes a mirror that reflects your real thoughts, not the ones shaped by pressure or convenience. One of the most important aspects of solitude is that it helps you differentiate between inherited beliefs and chosen beliefs. Many people carry ideas, preferences, fears, and goals that were never truly their own. They might pursue a certain career because it was expected, maintain certain habits because they were taught, or follow traditions without questioning whether they genuinely resonate. Spending time alone allows you to pause and examine these internal narratives. You gain clarity about which parts of your identity feel authentic and which feel borrowed. This separation is essential for building a self-defined identity grounded in personal truth rather than external conditioning. Solitude also deepens self-awareness by giving you uninterrupted time to observe your thoughts and emotional reactions. When surrounded by others, people often react quickly, sometimes without fully understanding why they feel a certain way. In alone time, emotions slow down. You can analyze why certain situations trigger you, why certain environments make you uncomfortable, or why certain goals excite you. This deeper understanding becomes a tool for better decision making. Self-awareness becomes sharper, and the choices you make begin to align more closely with your genuine needs and values instead of impulsive or socially influenced reactions. Another powerful way solitude strengthens identity is through the development of internal standards. When constantly influenced by others, it becomes easy to base your worth on comparison. You measure success by what someone else has achieved, or happiness by what someone else displays. Solitude helps break that pattern. With no one to compare yourself to, you begin setting your own definitions of success, fulfillment, and contentment. You learn what pace works best for you, what lifestyle you want to pursue, and what kind of person you want to become. Your identity becomes rooted in personal standards rather than societal benchmarks. Spending time alone also develops self-reliance. When you learn to make decisions by yourself, solve problems without immediate guidance, and sit with discomfort until it becomes growth, you strengthen your internal resilience. This resilience becomes a core part of your identity. It teaches you that you do not need constant reassurance or external approval to trust your judgment. You begin to build confidence from direct experiences that show you your capabilities, your strengths, and your capacity to adapt. Over time, this confidence shapes a strong, independent identity capable of navigating life with stability. Solitude encourages creativity, which is another dimension of identity formation. When the mind is not occupied with constant interaction, it begins to explore new ideas. Imagination grows, personal interests and passions become clearer because you have uninterrupted time to experiment, reflect, and express yourself without fear of judgment. Many people discover their truest talents and curiosities only when they have the space to be alone. Creativity becomes a personal signature, one that helps define individuality in a world filled with imitation and conformity. Another important aspect of solitude is that it teaches you emotional neutrality. When you spend time alone, you learn to regulate your emotions without depending on others for comfort or distraction. This emotional independence strengthens identity by teaching you that your feelings are manageable and understandable. You learn how to calm yourself, motivate yourself, and process your experiences internally. This stability becomes part of your character, making you less reactive to external negativity and more grounded in your own emotional clarity. Solitude also reveals the difference between loneliness and peaceful aloneness. Many people fear being alone because they associate it with emptiness, but when you learn to appreciate solitude, you realize that being alone can feel spacious, calm, and empowering. This shift becomes part of your identity, a recognition that your emotional well-being does not depend on constant company. You learn to enjoy your own presence, which builds self-respect and inner contentment. Over time, this transforms your identity into one shaped by confidence rather than fear. In solitude, you also develop a stronger relationship with your inner voice. This voice represents your instincts, your intuition, and your moral compass. When surrounded by others, this voice is often overshadowed by louder opinions. Alone, it becomes clearer. Listening to it consistently strengthens your sense of direction. It helps you recognize what truly matters to you, what boundaries you need, and what path feels right. The more you trust this inner guidance, the more decisive and aligned your identity becomes. Through solitude, identity is built intentionally rather than accidentally. You no longer define yourself by what others say, by what circumstances dictate, or by what society expects. Instead, you define yourself by your values, your reflections, your resilience, and your inner clarity. Independence creates healthier relationships because it removes the hidden pressure of expecting others to fill emotional gaps. When individuals rely on others to feel complete, secure, or validated, the relationship becomes burdened with silent expectations. These expectations often lead to disappointment, emotional dependency, and misunderstandings. Emotional independence changes this dynamic. It allows each person to enter a relationship from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. When both individuals feel complete on their own, the relationship becomes a choice, not a requirement for emotional survival. A key aspect of emotional independence is the ability to regulate your own emotions. People who manage their internal world effectively are not overwhelmed by insecurity or fear when someone behaves differently or needs space. They do not assume rejection every time something feels uncertain. Instead, they respond thoughtfully, recognizing that their emotional state is their own responsibility. This stability creates a calmer, more trusting relationship environment. Partners feel safe knowing they are not responsible for constantly fixing the other person's emotional lows. This balance allows both individuals to communicate more openly and honestly. Independence also brings clarity of boundaries. When a person understands themselves well and knows how to meet their own needs, they become better at expressing what is acceptable, what feels disrespectful, and what they expect from a healthy relationship. Clear boundaries reduce confusion and prevent resentment. Instead of hoping the other person will guess how they feel, independent individuals articulate their needs directly and respectfully. This style of communication invites mutual understanding rather than conflict. Healthy boundaries strengthen relationships by creating mutual respect instead of silent tension. Another important benefit of independence is reduced jealousy and possessiveness. When self-worth comes from within, individuals do not view others as threats. They do not panic when their partner interacts with new people or pursues personal interests. They understand that a partner's independence does not diminish the relationship. In fact, it enriches it. Healthy individuals are comfortable with trust because they are not basing their identity on the relationship alone. This trust becomes a cornerstone of strong, long-lasting connections. Independence also encourages personal growth within relationships. When both partners have their own goals, interests, and sources of fulfillment, the relationship becomes a place where growth is shared, not restricted. Partners inspire each other instead of depending on each other for all emotional needs. They support one another's progress while continuing to evolve individually. This creates a dynamic, evolving bond. A relationship where both individuals grow becomes stronger over time because it adapts rather than stagnates. Healthy relationships thrive when expectations are realistic. Emotional independence helps individuals understand that one person cannot satisfy every emotional requirement. No partner can be a constant source of entertainment, comfort, motivation, and validation. When people understand this, they stop placing unrealistic demands on their relationship. Instead, they bring their own joy, drive, and emotional stability into the partnership. This shared responsibility for happiness lightens the emotional load and allows both individuals to enjoy the relationship more fully. Independent individuals are also more resilient during conflict. Instead of reacting impulsively or taking disagreements personally, they are able to stay grounded and approach issues with maturity. They do not assume that conflict means the relationship is failing. They understand that disagreements are natural and can lead to deeper understanding when handled constructively. Their emotional stability allows them to listen better, apologize sincerely, and compromise without feeling like they are losing themselves. This kind of resilience prevents small issues from becoming major fractures. Another important component of independence is the absence of fear-based attachment. People who depend heavily on others for happiness often cling tightly out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of abandonment, fear of losing their identity without the relationship. This fear creates pressure and often leads to controlling behaviors. Independence removes this fear. When individuals are comfortable with solitude and confident in their ability to stand on their own, they approach relationships with openness rather than desperation. They do not need to control, cling, or constantly seek reassurance. Their presence becomes calm, steady, and supportive. Independence also enhances the quality of time spent together. When individuals have their own routines, passions, and sources of joy, they bring fresh experiences and insights into the relationship. Conversations become richer, interactions become more genuine, and shared time becomes more meaningful. Instead of being together out of habit or dependency, partners choose to be together because they enjoy each other's company. This voluntary connection strengthens intimacy and deepens emotional closeness. Independence allows relationships to be built on love rather than need. When individuals do not rely on a partner to fix loneliness, insecurity, or lack of purpose, the relationship becomes a place of mutual support rather than emotional rescue. Love becomes an expression of connection, not a solution to personal emptiness. This form of love is healthier, more sustainable, and more resilient. It creates a relationship where both individuals can give freely, grow consistently, and trust deeply, because their emotional foundation is already strong within themselves. Self-leadership shapes your life because it places responsibility, direction, and accountability back into your own hands. Instead of waiting for circumstances to change or for others to create opportunities, self-leadership encourages active participation in shaping your mindset, decisions, and long-term path. When individuals begin leading themselves, they stop drifting through life and start living with purpose. They become intentional about how they think, how they behave, and how they respond to the world around them. One of the core elements of self-leadership is the ability to create internal direction. Most people are influenced heavily by external factors such as trends, opinions, or expectations. Without conscious leadership from within, it's easy to follow the crowd without recognizing whether the path aligns with personal values. Self-leadership requires you to define your own priorities instead of borrowing them from others. This means asking questions such as, what truly matters to me? What kind of life do I want to build? What behaviors and habits support the person I want to become? Through these questions, you form a clear internal compass that guides your choices even when life becomes uncertain. Self-leadership also involves taking ownership of your thoughts. The mind can either be a powerful ally or a constant barrier. People who lack self-leadership often get trapped in cycles of negativity, comparison, or doubt because they let their thoughts run unchecked. Leading yourself means becoming aware of your mental patterns and consciously replacing unhelpful narratives with empowering ones. Instead of thinking, I can't handle this, a self-led mindset asks, what can I learn from this? Or how can I approach this differently? This mental shift builds resilience and strengthens the belief that you can influence your own outcomes. Another critical dimension of self-leadership is the willingness to take consistent action. Many people have aspirations but struggle to turn them into tangible progress because they rely on motivation alone. Motivation, however, is temporary. Self-leadership relies on discipline, doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. This discipline builds confidence because every small action reinforces the idea that you are capable of directing your own life. Over time, these actions compound, turning habits into measurable results. When individuals see the outcomes of their own discipline, it reinforces their identity as someone capable, responsible, and committed. Self-leadership also affects how individuals respond to setbacks. People who rely on external circumstances for direction often view obstacles as signs to stop. They interpret failure as an indication that they are not capable or not meant to pursue a certain path. In contrast, self-led individuals treat setbacks as feedback. They analyze what went wrong, adjust their strategy, and continue moving forward. This growth-oriented mindset is essential in shaping a fulfilling life because it turns challenges into stepping stones rather than roadblocks. The ability to self-correct without losing momentum is a defining trait of personal leadership. Another important component of self-leadership is emotional regulation. When individuals lead themselves, they do not allow temporary emotions to dictate long-term decisions. They learn to pause before reacting, understand their emotional triggers, and respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. This emotional intelligence not only improves personal well-being, but also influences relationships and professional environments. People who regulate their emotions communicate more effectively, resolve conflicts with clarity, and maintain stability even under pressure. This emotional steadiness becomes part of their identity and influences how others perceive and trust them. Self-leadership also develops a strong sense of purpose. Purpose is not always about grand achievements. Sometimes it is simply about having clear intentions behind daily actions. When individuals lead themselves, they choose activities, relationships, and environments that align with their purpose. They avoid distractions that do not contribute to their growth. This intentional living creates a life shaped by meaning rather than habit. Purpose provides long-term motivation and prevents individuals from feeling lost or directionless, especially during transitions or challenges. Another aspect of self-leadership involves self-education. People who lead themselves continuously seek knowledge, skills, and perspectives that support their growth. They read, observe, ask questions, and remain curious. They understand that learning is not limited to classrooms or formal settings. It is an ongoing process that enriches their ability to navigate life. Continuous learning strengthens adaptability, a crucial skill in a rapidly changing world. Individuals who commit to self-education are better equipped to handle new challenges and seize opportunities because they are constantly evolving. Self-leadership also strengthens independence in decision-making. People who lead themselves do not wait for others to approve their choices. They gather information, weigh options, consider their values, and then make decisions with confidence. This independence reduces confusion and eliminates the fear of judgment. It allows individuals to live authentically, guided by internal conviction rather than external pressure. When you trust your ability to make decisions, you build a life that reflects your true identity rather than a life shaped by other people's expectations. Self-leadership creates long-term fulfillment because it builds a life rooted in intentionality, growth, and personal responsibility. By leading yourself, you ensure that your happiness, progress, and direction come from conscious choices rather than chance. This sense of agency transforms how you experience life, making you not only more effective but more fulfilled, resilient, and empowered.